Tyler, you're up. Yep.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. My name is Tyler Brentley, and I am the director of the Black Cultural Center here at Virginia Tech. Thank you so much for joining us. We're very excited to have you, and we look forward to this evening's performance by Staceyann Chen, followed by a brief discussion. Before we begin, I'd like to start by reciting our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the Tutelo and Monacan people, who are the traditional custodians of the land of which we work and live, and recognize their continuing connection to the land, water, and air that Virginia Tech consumes. We pay respect to the Tutelo and Monacan nations and to their elders past, present, and emerging. We also acknowledge the university's historical ties to the indentured and enslaved whose labor built this institution. We pay respect to these people for their contributions to Virginia Tech. Now, I hope everyone is excited for our event this evening, which would not have been possible without the efforts of our very generous co-sponsors, which include the Asian Cultural Engagement Center, Women's and Minority Artists and Scholars Lecture Series, Women's Center, the Department of Religion and Culture, Hokie Pride, School for Performing Arts, Office for Inclusion and Diversity, Department of English, Creative Writing, Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Human Sciences, Laura Belmonte, the LGBTQ+ Resource Center, Office of Recruitment, Diversity, and Inclusion, Graduate School, the Center for Refugee, Migrant, and Displacement Studies, Cranwell International Center, the Asian American Student Union, Center for Rhetoric and Society, University Libraries, and the Cultural and Community Centers. Now, at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Nina Ha, who will introduce Dr. Andrea Baldwin. Thanks, Nina.
Thank you, Tyler. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Andrea Baldwin, who will then introduce our guest, Staceyann Chen. Dr. Baldwin is an assistant professor of Black feminisms in the Department of Sociology at Virginia Tech. Dr. Baldwin is an alumna of the University of the West Indies, where she received her law degree, master's in international trade policy, and PhD in gender and development studies. She has written extensively about Black women's experiences globally, including about the migrant experiences of Anglophone Caribbean women, Black women in the academy, and Black feminist activism. At Virginia Tech, Dr. Baldwin's dedication to the Black community is exemplified through her service. She has been the faculty advisor to the Black Graduate Student Organization, sits on the UGMA Living and Learning Community Steering Committee, and the advisory committee to the director of the Moss Arts Center, which focuses on diversifying the arts, and is a founding member of Reimagining Diversity, a research group which focuses on using augmented and virtual reality to decolonize diversity practices, just to name a few. Dr. Baldwin considers herself an all-around Caribbean woman who loves everything coconut and SCOA. And so, Dr. Baldwin.
Thank you, Dr. Ha. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce to you today Staceyann Chen. Before I introduce Staceyann Chen, I want to take a little liberty. And I want to say that as a Caribbean woman who grew up on the poetry of soca, calypso, and dancehall, and who very early on was inspired by the works of many Caribbean poets and artists, including people like Kamau Brathwaite and the formidable Audre Lorde, I have followed and been inspired by Staceyann's career for so long. Staceyann has had such an impact on so many, on me and also my students, because I use her work in my class. Her work speaks back to the racialized and gendered violence and oppression and heteronormativity. Like I said, I teach her work in my Caribbean class, and my students have all had the opportunity, afterward, to go ahead and look at more of her work, and they say how much she has inspired them in terms of thinking about their own positionality, whether it be their Caribbeanness or their queer identity. And so without further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce to you poet, actor, and performing artist, Staceyann Chen. Staceyann Chin is the author and director of, sorry, my phone just went off. I'm so sorry. Staceyann Chin is the author of the poetry collection Crossfire, A Litany for Survival, the critically acclaimed memoir, The Other Side of Paradise. Staceyann, I'm so sorry. That is my mother calling me from Barbados. Let me start over. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce to you poet, actor, and performing artist, Staceyann Chin. She is the author of the poetry collection Crossfire, A Litany for Survival, the critically acclaimed memoir, The Other Side of Paradise, co-writer and original performer in the Tony Award-winning Russell Simmons Deaf Poetry Jam on Broadway, and author of the one-woman show, Hands of Fire, Unspeakable Things, Border Clash, and Motherstruck. She has appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show and 60 Minutes, and her poetry has been featured in the New York Times and the Washington Post. She proudly identifies as a Caribbean, Black, Asian, lesbian woman, and a resident of New York, as well as a Jamaican national. And she is an amazing person. So I introduce to you tonight, Staceyann Chin.
Thank you so much, Dr. Baldwin. I didn't know you were going to the University of the West Indies. You did law here?
Yes, man. I am Cave Hill, right through and through. And I went to Hugh Wooding in Trinidad too.
Wow, that's amazing. Like, I mean, we might have a lot of friends in common. We were just laughing with my friends here. I'm actually in Jamaica, and we were laughing about how many lawyers I have among my cohort of friends here, you know. But, you know, it's lovely to be here in your company. Fantastic to be here with Dr. Nina Ha, who has been, you know, the spine of this operation, kind of navigating between everyone and kind of making it happen. So much deep gratitude. We were giving shout outs to the women of color who uphold almost all the progressive movements, especially the ones that hold the most vulnerable people at its center. I want to just give a shout out to, you know, those who are, you know, do this thankless, you know, Sisyphean work, pushing things uphill, having it roll back down, pushing it back up, having it roll back down. People arguing with you while you're trying to get it up. And then when it's not up, they're like, but we gave you the space to get it up. So I just want to give a shout out and just say, if you work with a woman of color in the institution, if it's a predominantly white institution, you should just go over there and be like, yo, thank you very much. I know you do things I am not even aware of, but I just want to be like, yo, thank you so much. I just want to like put it out there and just be like, charge you people who are not women of color to find yourself in the space with a woman of color and say thank you, because she ain't hear it often enough. I'm going to start with Crossfire. The title poem from the book Crossfire. It's an old poem I wrote this when I was quite young, but here we are. Am I a feminist or a womanist? The student needs to know if I do men occasionally, and primarily am I a lesbian? Tongue tied up in my cheek, I attempt to respond with some honesty. Well, this business of dykes and dykery, I tell her, is often messy. With social tensions as they are, you never quite know what you're getting. Girls who are only straight at night. Hardcore butches be sporting dresses between 9 and 6 during the day. Sometimes he is a she trapped by the limitations of our imaginations. Primarily, I tell her, I am concerned about young women who are raped on college campuses, in cars, after poetry readings like this one, in bars. Bruised lip and broken heart. You will forgive her if she doesn't come forward with the truth immediately. For when she does, it is she who will stand trial as damaged goods. Everyone will say she asked for it. Dressed as she was, she must have wanted it. The words will knock about in her head: horny, bitch, slut, tease, harlot, loose woman. Some people cannot handle a woman on the loose. You know those women in silk ties and pinstripe shirts, those women in blood red stiletto heels and short pink skirts. These women make New York City the most interesting place. And while we're on the subject of diversity, Asia is not one big race, and there is no such country called the islands. And no, I am not from there. There are 100 ways to slip between the cracks of our not so credible cultural assumptions about race and religion. Most people are surprised that my father is Chinese, like there's some kind of preconditioned look for the half Chinese lesbian poet who used to be Catholic but now believes in dreams. Let's keep it real, says the boy in the double X hooded sweatshirt. That blue-eyed, blonde hair Jesus in the Vatican ain't right. That motherfucker was Jewish, not white. Christ was a Middle Eastern Rasta man who ate grapes in the company of prostitutes and drank wine more than he drank water. Born of the Spirit, the disciples loved him in the flesh, but the discourse is not on those of us who clearly identify as gay or lesbian or straight. The state needs us to be left or right. Those in the middle get caught in the cross, Fire away at the other side. If you are not for us, you must be against us. And when people get scared enough, they pick a team, but be it for Buddha or Krishna or for Christ. I believe God is that place between belief and what you name it. I believe holy is what you do when there's nothing between your actions and your truth. The truth is, I am afraid to draw black lines around me. I'm not always pale in the middle. I come in too many fucking flavors for one single spoon. Never one thing or the other. At night, I am everything I fear. Tears and sorrows, black windows and muffled screams. In the morning, I am all I ever wanted. Rain and laughter, bare footprints, invisible seams, always without breath, without definition. I claim every single dawn. For yesterday is simply what I was. And tomorrow, even that will be gone. So I like to begin with that one sometimes because it makes us, especially when we're talking about intersectionality, it makes us consider the multiplicity of ways that we are stuffed into boxes, and those boxes don't ever fit because there's no box that is just neatly one thing or the other. There's no box where the person is just Black or the person is just Chinese or just Filipino or just Caribbean or just queer. We are all so many things, even as we seem to be only one thing to the onlooker, and the gaze can be so narrow sometimes. So I like to start with that poem. I'm just asking people to like shout out in the chat so that I don't feel like I'm speaking in this kind of echoey void. Usually I thrive off of people responding or like just saying, yo, I hear you, or I'm here. So if you're in the room, your own room, if you're in the shared virtual room here, please give a shout out, be like, yo, I see Riley is saying yes, Jessica, Jennifer, Janaya, is this from Sanaya or Sania? I'm not sure, but like, you know, let's, don't be afraid to make noise. Don't be afraid to be present. Don't be afraid to speak out, because if you do not speak, when they write the history books, they will say you weren't here. I'm also, yes, Jung, you are here, you are here, you are here. Letter to my father. And, you know, I have a lot of like issues around being Asian. I don't claim it as much as I would like to, because I feel sometimes I don't have a legitimacy, because I walk through the world, particularly in a place like the United States, where when people see me coming, they don't see Asian, they see Black. And then I walk in Jamaica, and of course, every Jamaican knows that I'm mixed in some way. So it's a very interesting thing. And now that I'm older and I walk through the streets with a kid, people don't see me as queer, because if you have a child, then, you know, that you're not seen as queer unless you have your partner there to legitimize your queerness. So it's a very interesting world we walk through. So this is, I had a very kind of professorial relationship with my father, where, you know, we negotiated each other kind of like he was an old professor and I was, you know, his kind of like longtime star student. Now you know, I had my kid, and then because I didn't quite know how to exist in this kind of like, he's not my father, but he is my father. I kind of stepped away from him after I had my own child. And so this is a letter that I wrote long before my kid was born. Letter to my father, who is Chinese. And I should say that my father maintained throughout my earlier life that he was not my father, and my mother was not present to contradict him. And so that narrative has kept up, even as half the family believes that's your kid and the other half says, well, I don't know. So my place with my father has never been certain. So therefore my entrance into the world of my Asian heritage has always been troubled. Letter to my father. Father, the A train is late again. Only moments to spare and I find myself thinking of you, penciled tall in my memory, looming a full 5 feet from the ground. Rain pelting into me, slicking strands of hair to my aching neck, urging me to hold you responsible for the aborted weddings, the whispered stories about my mother, the gaping secret she tried to take with her to Canada. I feel it now, digging into my memories, infant bruises, bleeding mud puddles if I pause for more than a Manhattan minute, inking my pen with nostalgia, mocking my accent in America, the immigrant, chewing the chalky flesh of the imported mango. On days like this, you invade this need I have for women, to swallow air with them, breathing backs curved taut against frightened bellies, silver spoons slipped easy into each other, reflecting the fury of the faces that are never quite sure why they fit together so well, why the rightness of that geometry is so hard to defend. On cold days like this, I yearn for the space between my grandmother's knees, the ancient smell of the amniotic, soothing as she pulled the tangles from my hair. With you, Father, it was always winter, your white skin thin and yellow, showing me ice inside. On gray days like this, I want to make you see that I am an excellent housekeeper. I want you to hear me speak out for little girls. Know that I consort with rampant homosexuals to taste the sorrow of women who have not yet found their voices. Beneath this thin sheet of ice, I want to beg you, look close at the girl who moves with the grace of a duck. Ankles turned in just like you. Shoulders never quite straight. Look now, Father, for soon that girl will be gone. This girl, loved by men who gave of themselves in bracelets and blood and being, walked in unholy places because they believed in me. They never quite measured up to what I imagined you to be. Men always too sensitive or too brash, wanted too much or too little, always fell short of your rejection money spent regular, exact figures on shore. I collected the stenciled square. On the first of every month, I carried it careful, a delicate confetti flake, caressed it, fleshy thumb against flat paper until your signature was almost invisible. The bank cashed it anyway. Everybody knew, Father. And I know you will never be proud. And I might someday stop trying to make you out of this lettered train, rushing across the torn and twisted tracks of this runaway daughter's recollection. Till then, there is so much to be done. The city moving fast, and me, I'm doing the best I can to keep up. And I don't know how many in the audience listen to Kenny Rogers. I don't know my audience because I can't see you, but I know that now that I'm in Jamaica, one of the things that we did a lot in Jamaica as children, and even now I've heard Kenny Rogers on the radio here. I don't know if you know, anybody, Kenny Rogers, Kenny Rogers, does anybody know who Kenny Rogers is in the audience? I've listened to him, said Casey. Yes, says Alicia. Yes, 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 a lot of yeses. But I don't know, maybe your parents listened to him a lot. But when I was a kid in Jamaica, man, oh man, we loved some Kenny Rogers. And Kenny Rogers used to be, they have a joke that says, Kenny Rogers can't come to Jamaica and actually do a whole concert. He don't even need to sing because all the Jamaicans who are in the audience are busy just singing his lyrics for him, because every Jamaican, even the gruffest security guard, the police, I mean, listen, yes, we know Kenny Rogers. So this is my poem that about when I, you know, about Kenny Rogers and my brother, who my mother left us both. So this is all the people who have complicated relationships with their siblings. Anybody in the audience with complicated relationships with their siblings? Let me hear an amen from you. Amen and hallelujah. Let's bring out the church for all the people who have complicated relationships. Traceyann, you sound like you're Jamaican. Traceyann Williams, you sound like you're so Jamaican. Okay, here we go. See there, of course you're Jamaican. Know when to fold. This one is, here we go. When I was 6 years old, my brother was everything. Quintessential Jamaican boy, hard exterior, like we like our boys, unforgiving, like Black men are so encouraged to be. I adored my brother, frugal with his love as well as his money. His affections were conditional. I loved everything he did. And he loved him some Kenny Rogers. So I loved Kenny Rogers too. For 9 years, my brother was my only reflection. Both of us brown, abandoned by our mother. Him with lighter skin, yes. Hair straighter than mine, yes. We were similar enough to see ourselves in each other. Both of us hurt enough by the world to fiercely love each other. He loved me grudgingly. I adored that boy like an eager pup, a reluctant owner. In charge of everything we did, he made me sing country music like we was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. We spent whole afternoons begging, Ruby, don't take your love to town, singing daytime friends and nighttime lovers, like old drunks reliving tragic lives. My brother loved the gambler most of all. You gotta know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, and know when to run. He sang the gambler like he was Kenny Rogers himself. I couldn't understand why he loved that song so much, but I would have followed my brother anywhere. So just to please him, I sang the gambler with gusto. And then when we were 10, our mother returned, separated us, sent him to Mount Salem, left me in a place called Paradise, and disappeared. The distance between my brother and I, only 2 miles, might have been 2,000. We became single children of Sisyphus, pushing the rock of abandonment of disparate mountains. No more Kenny Rogers. He switched to reggae. I listened to Melissa Etheridge, Sarah McLachlan, Michelle Ndege Ocello. We both tried so hard to remain close, but our love was never meant to survive, never meant for holiday dinners or lasting relationships. Our life was marked for infrequent, awkward reunions, laced with sorrow. We lived every day pushing against our deep desire for love, needing people, but guarding against it. Such is the delicate wiring of emotional dysfunction. The few good times we had were complicated, rare, magical. Circa 1999, we found compromise in Mariah Carey, speeding 100 miles per hour on the Autobahn. Windows down, we sang into the cold night, felt so alone. Suffered through alienation, carried the weight on my own. Happy as I was, I remember thinking in the back of my mind, Being a lesbian will one day cost me my first love, my brother, the only boy whose opinion of me ever mattered. I needed this brother of mine to love me, but I needed him to know me too. So I took a chance, baited fate, and told him all about the girlish collisions I had on campus, the tacit lovers who went with me to illegal house parties in Jamaica, the pretty girls residing in the smallest closets on campus. I couldn't be silent about any of it anymore. I told my brother everything about the boys who assaulted me, about their fingers, about their hands, their fists. My brother listened intently as I talked statistics, as I went on and on about the rate at which they were killing people like me in Jamaica. Frightened and resigned to losing him, I told him I was about to be out like a motherfucker. And my almost twin, both of us discarded by our mother, both of us half-breeds, both seeds of my mother's ill-conceived youth, only 2 years apart, my brother, who had no reason to, told me that he loved me. My Jamaican boy, raised on a stout diet of violent homophobia, said I was his sister, so it didn't matter. And I didn't quite know how to show him how lucky I felt to be his sister. I wanted to sing The Gambler right there and then out loud. But the moment wasn't right for that, so I just decided I was going to love him as much as I can. I knew then that our bond would survive everything. We loved each other hard as we could, ill-matched as siblings, witnesses to each other's pain. We developed a routine of sustainability. Whenever we disagreed about anything, he would mostly walk away, and I would mostly not let him. At each fracture, I would remind my brother that we were all we had, each other. We had survived our mother. I would remind him that we could survive this. So the last time we argued, I was surprised how swiftly the tables turned. Without warning, you never see things coming. In an instant, we were again children, forced to make beauty out of tragedy. The house of cards we had so carefully constructed collapsed. Hurt and unable to find a way forward, we both folded. Bound and broken by all we had endured, we found ourselves unable to hold each other, angry and intractable. My big brother walked away, and this time, I let him. It's painfully poetic that the contention was about our children. This irony proves everything about parenting and progeny. Generational trauma cannot be sidestepped. Today, there's almost nothing but sadness between me and my brother. I know nothing of his life. I imagine he knows nothing of mine. Our childhood is now only a silent scream, except for the odd memory triggered by the old playlist. A song in my car, cartwheeling me back to us as children, unwittingly belting out our future. You gotta know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, know when to run. So that's for all the siblings out there still trying to work it out. But we would probably have another 40, 50 years of life. Those of you in school probably have another 60, 70 years of life. So hope springs, right? So when I was young, I used to write all kind of sexy poems. And I used to feel like, you know, and at the time it was like, I remember lots of women not being able to speak definitively about their sexuality, to claim it loud and proud, and to speak a kind of rabid desire. And I how do I say this? And for me to be a young Black lesbian, a young Jamaican Black lesbian, for me to speak out so clearly about my own desire for women and to speak it so plainly and without apology, I suppose it was radical at the time. And I'm beginning to think perhaps every time women claim a sexuality, every time we decide that we can fuck when we want to, and we don't have to fuck when we don't want to, I hear so much pushback that I still think it's radical. So I was writing poems like, nails down my back don't scare me, even when they leave trails in 3s and 4s, running down the length of my spine, making my roommate wonder, what are they doing in that bathroom so long? I don't mind the soft touch of knuckles grazing cheeks, fingertips touching breast tips so gently, the orgasm is afraid to come. 1 out of every about 5 times. I prefer that slow, easy kind of loving that makes the body slide into itself, sleepy and complete with the cat-like purring of a puss, well stroked. But on the ordinary day, when I've written a good poem or fucked up poem, a poem I'm too ashamed to let the other poets see, I want a leash with my name on it, attached to a collar with tiny silver studs to press into me when I attempt to escape. I want to wear cheap lingerie so you can rip the lace into strips you'll use to tie my hands together and spank me for exposing the details of our not so ordinary sex life. And I think it's good to be 100. That way you can get into my hard to reach places easily. And I seriously doubt you could do that twister thing with a woman much bigger than that. That thing where I'm standing on the edge of the bath and I'm not allowed to hold on to the curtain rod and you behind me making me, or that other thing where I'm in the kitchen and you hoist me up onto the counter by my knees and dinner is a little bit later than we planned. Those days I don't want quiet. I wouldn't know what to do with it. I like it when there are screams and battle scars and trophies. That way, before the war begins, I already know what I'm about to fight for. And sometimes her body is a litany of desires. And I wrap her frail around my body, ribs striped and stretched towards healing, grotesque, beautiful. These sores, I carry them, fingers sticky and heavy with exactitude. I flay the muscled sacrament with wine and water and bread and worship. I want you litany, like bleeding, like a fire fan open, like my legs insistent, like fate, like salt, like I want you litany, like bleeding, like a fire fan open, like my legs, insistent, like fate, like salt, like memory. Tell them to me, your stories, tender to the touch. This is what I have always wanted from you, the cracked edge of what has just begun to harden. I want you against time and revelation and beds too far away. I want you wanting me, clothed in the absolution of fangs and forks and fucks we shouldn't have. I want you buried in the belly of a blind belief like Joseph, like Jonah. I want you buried in the belly of a blind belief like Jonah, like Apostle, like Mary, like Joseph, like God. I want your spirit made flesh within me, frail and futile. I want to follow you, broken ground you, sound you hoarse from the flick of this foreign tongue like mud and martyr and mornings without sun. I want to quiet you like quick, like cunt, like hollow, like whole. I want to hold you holy, like prayer, like benediction, like intercession, like hallelujah, like hallelujah, like hallelujah, like amen. Are you out there, people? Virginia Tech, are you out there still? Are you out? Yes, yes, yes. Unmute yourself. Let me hear you. Sometimes the silence go kill people. Audre Lorde say, your silence will not protect you. So make some noise, people. You know, you know, my politics, I suppose, have been like a kind of organic development alongside, you know, my becoming better at understanding my whole self, and also more deeply committed to a global politic. So of course, I was in Jamaica, born poor, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna work really hard. I'm gonna climb the social ladder. I climbed the social ladder. I got up there. I ended up at university, and you know, I was gonna be able to like marry a nice, you know, man that could like, you know, provide for me and whatever children I was gonna have with him. And he would, you know, the marriage was gonna legitimize my solid, you know, journey into middle class or upper middle class in Jamaica. And then I kind of came into my lesbian identity and was on campus and came out and became very much a target because of that, and was actually attacked by about a dozen boys in a bathroom, sexually assaulted. And when I came up from that, I was like, I can't be here because I want to be an out lesbian and I can't risk that happening to me again. So I left for the United States, landed in the States, and just, how do I say this? And was very concerned with my being lesbian. I wanted to become a part of the army that would change the world and make space for other queer people to be safe and to be free. And then that was kind of cool because New York was the kind of place where, like, you know, if you throw a rock in any crowd, you're going to hit 7 lesbians with one rock. And so that was nice, but a lot of those spaces were white and a lot of them were like racist. And I was like, yo, man. And then I realized that they were also like xenophobic, and they had like these weird limited notions about who Caribbean women were, who immigrants were, who qualified as Asian. And then I started kind of hooking up with like these weird, beatniky, strange poets on the Lower East Side of the New York City. And I started to hear stories about poor white people in Appalachia. You know, I mean, I started to hear stories about like Southerners who were like straight up Christian, maybe even homophobic, but were like existing in a place where the race politics in America had them skewered to a wall, dying. And then I talked about urban poor Black people. And then I heard about like people who were elsewhere, like in, you know, in the global South in the world. And then every time I was thinking about Palestine, and then, you know, people in, you know, Yemen, and like people in Sudan, and people in other Caribbean spaces that were being kind of, you know, you talk about the caste system in India. And then it was kind of spiraling out of control. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like, how are you gonna fight for progress when there are so many fronts that need soldiers? And then I started reading the works of June Jordan, where born Palestinian, born Black, where she started to talk about how it is that your struggle could not be, you know, it can't progress without it being tied to somebody else's struggle. So this notion that I was going to fight for Black women's rights alone was never in the tradition of the women I was learning to follow. And And even as Black women have formed the spine of almost every social justice movement in America, certainly, and every social justice movement in modern times, you know, Black women, queer women, you know, the trans community, the non-gender conforming community, like people who don't necessarily identify with this binary notion of, you know, I mean, I see Leslie writing, none of us free until all of us free. I mean, that notion that all oppression is connected, that notion that the same 9 white men who want abortion to be illegal, who want, you know, the borders to close down against people of color, who want, you know, the minimum wage to remain below a livable wage, who want, you know, women to be, you know, chattel, who want, you know, children's rights not to be on the ballot. Like, they're the same people. And I just have grown to understand that whatever politic I articulate must always include the bodies of, the voices of, the issues of the most vulnerable among us. So, and as that becomes my way of speaking, I begin to talk about how Black women have been just that for so many movements, so many people, and yet here we are. You know, the Me Too movement was this huge, crazy, wonderful movement that never, that, you know, the Me Too movement has been going on for at least 500 years in America, but it was Black women saying Me Too. And so nobody was hearing it. And over the last couple of years, white women in Hollywood, rich white women in Hollywood, rich, thin white women in Hollywood started to talk about being sexually, you know, assaulted and sexually marginalized and sexually harassed and sexually exploited. And all of a sudden, the whole world is up in arms about like this business of exploiting women. We must deal with it. And Black women have been saying this for so long, consistently, all the time, every day, in every circumstance, in every corner of society, and nobody's been hearing it. So I am charged to speak that as well. And, you know, Asian women are being trafficked, you know, when you talk about the borders and you talk about, you know, Latino women coming across the border and how, you know, the trafficking of like women's bodies, girls' bodies, is just a part of the way that, you know, immigrants find their way to America, and has never been a part of the conversation that, you know, middle-class America, if queer people were talking about being sexually harassed or being sexually assaulted, then that was PG-13. But all of a sudden, white women in Hollywood are being attacked, and all of a sudden we can talk about it on the 7 o'clock news, and we can talk about it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on CNN, and nobody minds it. But whenever you're talking about queer people being attacked and queer people being sexually assaulted, then, oh no, we can't talk about it. So that's my pre-rant before the rant. Are we ready? Let me know you're still out there. Come on, I know it's hard to like follow, but you know.
Yes.
Because, you know, we're not talking in a void here. We are an army. We are a global fucking army that is just present and speaking out loud, and we will not allow them to snuff out our voices. So let me hear you, all these women of color, all of these trans people, all of these non-gender conforming people, all of these immigrants, everybody just light it up, make we do it. Let us do it. We out there, we're marching, we're on the internet, we're taking up space, we arguing inside of classrooms, we are speaking out, you know, in board meetings. We are here and we refuse to be silenced. So let them know that fire, fire, fire. This one is called Tsunami Rising, and some people call it No More Water. In the balance of human biology, all bodies are created equal. Everybody is about 70% water, regardless of race, religion, gender, sex, or sexual orientation. We all die after about 7 days without drink. But the idiots obsessed with category have decided that a double X chromosome designates me, subordinate to those with an X and a Y. Intersect those two X's with the fact of my blackness, and my existence is now coded as dangerous, hostile, a direct threat to the endurance of the white patriarchy. And everybody knows that white men have spent centuries appropriating what they wanted. The gold they found in Africa wasn't enough, so they packed human bodies, black bodies, head to toe, submerged in a swamp of our own urine and feces. They dragged us across violent waters. Many of us drowned our young rather than let them live at the mercy of white men and their sons and their grandsons and their grandsons' sons. Just to keep breathing, some of us became one-dimensional in the public imagination, in real life. In books, we had to become one thing or the other, spinster or mother, victim or virgin, damsel or whore. Some of us went way underground for centuries. Some of us let go, slipping away into the sunken place. Others revolted, took up arms, crawled through sewage, defied geography to build new lives in new cities. And that's how I find myself in Brooklyn, where I spend my nights reading tales of Nubians bathing naked in the Nile, Kushite queens, equal to kings, all of them praying to a black woman named Isis, the most powerful goddess among gods. And I imagine, for a moment, if I were Isis, I would use my might to smite every motherfucker who ever looked at a little girl with lust in his flesh. I would exact vengeance on behalf of every black woman who has disproportionately borne the weight of racial and sexual violence, while everybody in the suffragette movement and the black civil rights movement and the LGBT movement turned a blind eye to her swollen lips mouthing, "Me too, me too. Someone please help me get him off. Me too, me too, me too." For centuries, black women have endured the culture of rape and racism combined. For centuries, the world has stood silent while black women and girls were bullied by black men and white women alike. For centuries, rape was a word black mothers never spoke out loud, but every black daughter knew what it meant. It meant lie still. It will pass, daughter. Keep quiet. Ignore that girl who screams too loudly, my child. Don't you dare shame this good black family. And then one day, something brilliant happened. A black woman named Tarana Burke inspired wealthy white women to say, "Me too, too." And herein wriggles the strange rubric of America's particular strain of racism. Ironically, the viral mobility of the Me Too hashtag was only possible because a white woman with power retweeted a black woman's words. 2 words which unleashed a wildfire of public testimony, pushing the shroud of sexual violation from the shadows, shoving it onto primetime TV. Yet, 12 years after Tarana Burke's Me Too moment, black women are still largely missing from the public dialogue about sexual assault. Inside of this one-sided sisterhood, black women are so tired of being disregarded. And if white feminists gave black feminists room to speak honestly, this is a letter we might pen to you whose crying consistently drowns out the sound of our suffering. Dear weeping white women, even as we cannot find safe space to show you where or when or how we were torn open, we are only holding this sorrow to keep our hearts from imploding. We are unable to process any of this pain with you because we are exhausted from centuries of holding you and your children. We have a hard time trusting you because you have never been able to stand by us and stand up for us. We are so tired of explaining ourselves. And tell you what, if you wish to know anything else about this rage, the genesis of this rage, please go and fucking Google us or read some Bell Hooks or some Brittany Cooper or the bevy of blogs your black, the bevy of blacks, the bevy of the blogs of the bevy of black women writers your white publishers are too afraid to publish. For centuries, we have been carrying the weight of your white fragility. Year after year, marching for everyone else's freedom, protesting for everybody's privilege but ours. Well, this crazy mad gaggle of global witches and hags are done breathing beads of silent acceptance. Simply put, in this century, Black women intend to take up more motherfucking space. Black women are crafting a collective response to centuries of being under everybody's water. We are now a rising tsunami of fury, come back to take back what was carried away without consent. And while we're here talking candidly to each other, I might as well confess to you that I don't give a fuck if you never like my big mouth, black like my lover's ass. It has never endeared me to the gatekeepers of white civility. My proclivity to speak the unspeakable is essentially the only defense I have against the indefensible violence of your man-made history. Yours truly, Black feminists. Inside my house, there is no shadow talk of birds and bees. We trade indecipherable metaphors that will not confuse my daughter. I tell her in concrete words, your mouth, your elbow, your hair, your arms, your legs, your vagina, your whole goddamn body belongs to no one but you, my darling. And if you ever feel even a tiny bit unsafe, you open your mouth, you scream for help, you call for your mother, and I will always believe you. In a world that regularly demonstrates how much it hates Black women, this is what it means to be assigned the label of Black and girl. And yet, Black women continue to survive, to thrive, to arrive into adulthood with the ability to laugh and love and wear hoop earrings and tight skirts and found social movements to liberate other motherfuckers from bondage. If any of this sounds like I'm speaking your story, this poem be for you, my love. If ever you have ever had to argue that you are no less deserving than your white counterpart, I am speaking to you and for you, my love. If the rest of you, any other rest of you, if you've ever been inspired by the magic of Black women with thighs and asses that move mountains in their stride, if you've ever been told you speak too fiercely from the thick lip of your own truth, if you have ever been called girl like it was a fucking insult, if you have ever been called bitch, step forward now if you're itching to light a fucking bonfire in the house of the white patriarch. You come now and you stand with Black women right now if you want to be free like Harriet Tubman, weapon in hand, wading through unfriendly waters, her power compelling the freedom of even those who did not want to be free. If you desire to be confrontational like Sojourner, if you wish to be audacious like Audrey, antagonistic like Angela, gangster like Winnie Mandela, angry like Assata Shakur, you come roar with us at these rallies. You sit beside us in school. You sing with us in church. Stand with us where it matters. Vote with us. You motherfucking vote for us at these polls. Travel with us in the virtual, in the flesh, over these waters they have used against us as weapons, across the lands of this rock we all call home. Let us fire, crack the ground wide open with an uprising that will never again die down. Say it with me, no more water. We need fire next time. Say it with me, no more water. Fire next time. We go use no more water. We want fire, fire, fire next time. Fire! Fire! Yes, this is for all the women out there who just be doing the work and all of a sudden some white man getting the glory for it. You are pushing forward as a queer woman and all of a sudden the straight white woman has got the tip from the people at the top for doing the work. I recognize you. I know this is not no big, global, ceremony, but I anoint you the real hero of the moment in your office as you slave away at work and as no one recognizes it. Here in this room tonight, I recognize you, I hold you, I bow to you. I thank you for my career. I thank you for the space that echo back these words to me to make me know I'm not speaking in a vacuum. I love you. I speak with you. I hold you. And we just belong to a big chain link of people that go further back than memory. It go further back than the patriarchy. Women have always held it down. Women always, always, always held it down. Women and their allies. So I think now we can move on to some questions, if that's okay with people. If you have things to say, if you just want to make some noise, if you just want to say, Ray, whatever you want to say, this is the space for it. Mad, 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 mad love from Jamaica.
Wow, thank you, thank you, thank you. That was amazing. Hopefully next time I want to bring you in person at some point.
Yeah, you know, lunch with different people, and we can have classroom visits, and we can, you know, have like sidebars and have inappropriate confessions. I love that's the thing I miss most. I miss meeting feminists and like the car ride from the airport and the, you know what I mean?
Yes. There's been so much in the chat. And I think I wanted to get Tyler to just give you the names and the where the location of some of the participants or attendees. Tyler,
I saw from Baton Rouge.
Yeah, I seen it. So I got to scroll all the way up. It was quite a bit. I'm just going to shout out some names. We got Margaret from Blacksburg, Staceyann from Blacksburg, Bonnie from Blacksburg, Keela, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, from Baton Rouge, Diana from Chicago, okay. Janaea from Boston. We got Riley in Christiansburg. We have Catherine or Kat in Roanoke. And we have Vivi, who is at Virginia Tech, but is currently in Philadelphia, just to name a few.
Yeah. Global, you know.
I want to shout out the Caribbean people too. We got Janaea, who's of Caribbean descent.
Unmute yourself, I can't hear you.
Oh, I still muted? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah. Just barely.
Barely.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me better?
I can hear you now. I'm just wondering if anybody, but go ahead. Let me hear you.
Okay. I was just saying I want to big up the Caribbean people in the chat too. We got Janaea, who's of Caribbean descent. And we got Leslie, who is Trini in the house as well. And I'm not sure who else in, and we had another person who's of Caribbean descent here. You know, we have a little community going on at Virginia Tech where we try to keep the warmth with our love and our network. So yeah, thank you. Look, you just gave me my life. Just gave me my life. Thank you.
It wasn't a blood transfusion, like it's like a blood exchange. Because when I heard the way you spoke earlier, and you know, I'm here in Jamaica. We've been here 4 weeks. I think this is the longest time she's been here since she's been sentient. And you see, she here. Oh. You know, can I tell them a little story about the Jamaican accent? Yeah. All right. So she had a sigh in the bed one night, and I said, "What happened? What's wrong?" She says, "When do you think my Jamaican accent is gonna come in?" Sweetest thing, sweetest. So I mean, you know, we all have our ways of belonging and wanting to belong, and you're getting so Jamaican, brown, eating Jamaican food, having Jamaican friends. Yes.
I don't know if there are any questions right now. Questions, people. At all. Otherwise, I guess, Dr. Baldwin, you must have quite a few.
Yes. I was listening to the poem, particularly the one with your about your brother, and just me being nosy, but also having a brother myself who are having siblings as well, who, you know, our relationships we love each other so much, but it is, me being here and me leaving, and then, you know, the Caribbean sometimes can be a place where, when you come into like your feminist consciousness, it is difficult to go back home to family sometimes. And so I wanted to hear more about your well, I would stop the question.
Girl, you know what you're talking about right there. She's asking about how difficult it is coming back home when you have a feminist politic. I just read a book called A Girl is a Body of Water, by I can't remember, but A Girl is a Body of Water. It is an incredible read. I didn't get any sleep last night because I was halfway through the book and had to finish it. And so I was up, like, you know, my daughter and I are sleeping in the same room. And so I didn't want to have the light on. So I went in the bathroom and like laid down on the floor and finished half this book last night. It's written by Jennifer Nansubuga Makumbi. Get this book. It's an amazing read where it's an interesting deconstruction of Black feminism inside of what looks to us outside. Like, you know, you talk about these cultures with, like, you know, multiple wives and men in charge. And so it's this brilliant, you know, they even have words for feminism outside of English words. And it's just like beautiful sweeping story about the construct of feminineness and womanness next to maleness and manness and masculinity and femininity. And it kind of like, it's left me just kind of wide open and raw. It's an amazing read. And it's funny that you asked me that, because there are ways in which we articulate feminism, and we articulate, you know, like the patriarchy, that are often very, very, it lauds the kind of like white feminist politic. And you know, I ended up in America and in New York with these white women who thought that, you know, wearing pants and having a tool belt was new and progressive. And I know, I mean, I was just today down in St. Thomas with a woman who was 70 years old, like wielding a machete and wearing like water boots. And, you know, when you listen to her talk, she would be very deeply entrenched in what people might call a kind of patriarchal politic. But she limb up things and go to the ground and dig and build a house, and anything that needs to be fixed in the house, she fixes it herself. And she was like the business mind in her marriage, that, you know, and she acquired all the land she acquired. Like, there's a way that there are only like pockets of female power that are seen as feminist, whereas because we're not using the language of white feminism, it's not seen as, you know. And so there's a way that, you know, sometimes youth, you know, I feel like my youth kind of held me quite, I would say, you know, strangled me a bit, because it's kind of hard to really see yourself outside of the patriarchal structure when you are still wearing a body that men desire and value deeply. And I tell you, when I turned the corner of 40 and COVID stopped me from going to get my hair colored, you know, I kind of slipped outside of the notion of men's desire, mostly. And something happens to you Because first, you know, I spent like a long time wrestling with wanting it, because for such a long time, it was a marker of how woman I was, that men still desired me, even as my feminist self said, I don't need their desire, and I'm offended by it. There was something in me that desired it. So when you walk around the block and the construction workers don't respond, you feel like you want to walk around again, because why they've never called to me. But at the same time, when you really are severely entrenched in this place where you aren't getting it, then you really have to deconstruct what it is that you're getting and how you're feeling about it. You know, one of my favorite poets, Tony Hoagland, he wrote, when my sister was diagnosed with skin cancer, she let go of the burden of being beautiful. And there's something magical about, like, when men aren't looking at you and calling at you all the time, all of a sudden you can really like dress how you want, and you can, without being so deeply, I mean, I'm making all kinds of utterances which probably don't make any sense together, but I want to say that white feminism is quite narrow, and white feminism has deep problems when it comes to race and class, and it's sizist, and you know, at the same time it's sizist. On the other end, we don't know, in the feminist community, talk about health without attaching it to like thinness. And it's a very like strange world, you know, and as white women, their hair is the mark for beauty, but then the feminist ones can chop it off. But when a Black woman cuts her hair off, we're not given the same kind of like response as when a white woman cuts her hair off, because the reason what our hair looked like to white women in white spaces is very different. I just think that there's like, if we could get all the best parts of the feminism, say in feminism in the Asian Pacific community, feminism in the Black community, feminism in the Latino community, feminism in the white community, and if we get a coalition to come together and be like, yo, this thing that you're having over here is quite narrow, but this thing that we've been working on it in this way over here. But you know, as with most things with race, the white people just take over all the space and suck all the air out of the room. And you know, I don't even want to talk about what white feminism is, because that is centering it again. I would like to talk about what Black feminism is. I would like to talk about what Asian women, what South Asian women, like how, you know, a woman who exists in a marriage with 5 women, how it is that how she runs our life and how she runs the structure of this community could be deeply feminist. The same way that it could be feminist to be like, I'm not going to be with a man, but I'm going to take on all of the like worst parts of maleness and then just wear it and like silence people and start acting like a man in the office. It's a long answer to a short question, but you know, it's a very rich, you know. I know so many feminists who don't look like feminists, who are like 70-year-old Black women. I know so many of them who are feminists and would never call themselves feminists, but when I look at them and I see how them roll, they're feminists.
Yeah, them raised me. My mother would never call herself a feminist. My grandmother would never call herself a feminist. But without them too, I wouldn't. I mean, I learned everything I learned from them. Yeah,
absolutely. And then make blood out of stone, buy a house with nothing, like send you to school with like no car. Like, I mean, teach you how to read. My grandmother could not read, but gave me the love of story and insisted that I learn how to read. Now tell me that that is not a witch, and tell me how witchery is just a part of feminism. So anyways.
Somebody had in the chat, Catherine Willis, do you feel that that the queer community is better known in Jamaica and more accepted?
I mean, I think the queer community, just like progress is marching along in every other part of the world, so it is in Jamaica. So doors opened. Doors are being opened. Freedom is being, demanded and obtained. Like yesterday, there was a big march at the House of Parliament here. Women, We Change, a local group of women, they went out, and abortion is still illegal here, but they went out and marched. And it's only because I couldn't get childcare, and I know that like my child's presence at an abortion march in Jamaica would make her unsafe. So I couldn't go. So I had to make the call to stay home with my kid rather than take her into danger. But local activists have always been quite active and changing things. And then the queer community here with money. This is where the intersectionalism between money and like queer people with money here have never been unsafe. Them just build a house in the hills and have a whole heap of gay parties, and all the gay people who are in politics and the gay people who are well-traveled and have a lot of money and can buy space, and hire people who know that they're gay but say nothing, even as they are philosophically and religiously opposed to queerness. People with money have always been able to buy the space to be safe. And so the people who are poor are usually the people who are most vulnerable, which means that the question of safety within the context of being queer is not about just queerness, it's about being queer and poor, or being queer and like a feminine man, or like there's always these points, it's not like queer people are not safe in Jamaica. It's just that a certain kind of queer people, and usually I bet you that vulnerability is, in tandem with a bunch of other markers that render them vulnerable anyways.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, one more question, and then I just wanted to be cognizant of the time because I know people have other things to do. But Dr. Baldwin?
No, I was just going to say that I think about, for instance, the work of Gina Dent's work on uptone, downtone, and how to be uptone is to be safe in a lot of ways.
Look at Sister was here. Sister was a group of always. Yeah. In any case, are we wrapping up?
Sorry, yes, we are wrapping up.
So my kid wrote a poem today and would like to share it. So
okay, and then we'll close on that note.
Nice and loud and projecting, Zurichin.
Fall. I sit under the oak tree. A leaf falls on my nose. It's changing colors like a disco ball. Mama rakes the leaves off the porch. She sings a song along with the birds. The song wraps me in a loose, soft blanket. The leaf waves goodbye and flies away with the breeze. I see his lights fade into the clouds. I look above me. There is a branch of leaves. I wonder if that leaf will ever come back.
Thank you so much for sharing, my love.
Yay. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Very beautiful.
Guys, very
I
indulgent.
just,
Very much for making for the Zuri poems.
oh, thank you. Just wanted to let other people know before you all leave that Staceyann will be back on Friday at 11 for a workshop for facilitating, mostly for students, but others can also attend if you would like and have a more intimate dialogue and conversation with Staceyann. So that's on Friday. If you want, just reach out to me, nha@vt.edu, and I will send you the link and information. But thank you so much, Staceyann.
I can't thank you enough. Thank you, Nina, for making this happen. I don't know how you made this happen, but you made it happen. And so lovely to meet you, Dr. Baldwin. You and I have to link to connect. You know, Nina has to come to New York, so maybe two of you could come up to New York and then could have a big powwow in the backyard or something.
Yes, please. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you.
love you back. And you know, you have a new friend. You know, so please, you know, stay close. And I see you have a little one there too. My little one will play with any other little one.
Oh yes. Oh yes. We got you. I got you covered.
Of Nina again. You are a rock star. You are stratosphere rock star. You are amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, well, no, thank you. Thank you for your patience, because it took a long time to get you here. So I really am so very honored and glad that you made it. So I appreciate you very much.
Anybody else with any questions, feel free to shoot them at me or save them for the workshop on Friday, or like DM me or whatever, or I'll see you on the interwebs, you know. Mad love.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I think we're good to go. Let's see, how do I stop video?
And can I get a